Tēnā koutou katoa, no mai ki te huni o te kaunihere o Ponaki, ai tēnei rā. Welcome everybody to today's Pūroro Hātepe Regulatory Processes Committee. Please let myself or the Democracy Advisors know if you intend to leave the meeting at any point. Welcome everybody. My name is Councillor O'Neill. I will be chairing this dog control hearing today. And if you're very welcome to join me. I'm just going to read the opening karakia, but with yourself on mute ideally. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e hi aki ana te atakura, he teo, he huka, he hauhu, ti hei, mauri ora. Welcome, councillors. I'd just like to call forward any apologies for today. Has anybody received any apologies? Deputy Mayor Sarah Free.
Yes, sorry, I will be putting in an apology for early departure.
Okay, thank you. And we have also signalled that perhaps an apologies for Mayor Andy Foster for perhaps intermittent attendance. Excellent. With that, if there are no more apologies, I would like to move the motion. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Matthews. If you are able to just vote on screen now, please, councillors. Excellent. I declare the motion as carried. Thank you. And now we will just move on to the conflict of interest declaration. I call on any members to declare any conflicts of interest that they may have in relation to the item on the agenda today. Do we have any conflict of interests? No? Excellent, thank you. And then following on from that, we will move to item 1.4, confirmation of minutes. Whakataka koto ana o ai te motini. I move the motion that the Pūroro Hātepe Regulatory Processes Committee approve the minutes of the last meeting held on the month of February, having been circulated and read, and that they be confirmed as an accurate record of that meeting. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sarah Free. Excellent. Councillors, would you please just vote on screen? Fantastic, that has passed unanimously. Next, we are just scrolling through. There are no items not on the agenda, and there is no public participation for this meeting. And so what we will do now is we will just give a brief rundown of the process for our paper on the objection to a classification under the Dog Control Act 1996. So thank you, everybody. What we will be doing today is, this will be the layout. First, we are going to hear from the animal control team from Wellington City Council's public health team. Then we will hear from the objector, Fernanda. And then we will have an opportunity to ask questions to both parties after they have given their opening statements. There will be no cross-examination between the two parties. And then finally, we will invite back the representatives of Wellington City Council's public health team and animal control team to give kind of a closing statement, and then again over to Fernanda and the other plaintiffs to sort of close out their statement. Once we've come to the end of the first part of that hearing, councillors will take an adjournment to debate the evidence that has been put out in front of us, and that adjournment will be heavily minuted, but that is just to give privacy and respect to both the parties here today. Once we have returned from the adjournment, councillors have the option of either upholding the recommendation or rescinding the whole recommendation. We cannot make any further amendments, no extra things like that. And with just a quick rundown of that process, are there any questions? I think I've just got a question there.
Sorry, thank you, Chair.
Can I just seek some clarification? The paper says that we will debate in public, but obviously deliberating in private. I'm just wondering, just given we do want to be respectful to all the parties, how that debate will be conducted. Just otherwise, why would you not do it all in public or all in private? So I just wondered where the boundary lines were. Kia ora.
Yeah, no, that's a fair enough question. I'll just hand over to Officer Paloka to answer that one.
Yeah, so we will, when we do come back into after deliberations, it will just be a normal debate. So yeah, just as like a normal committee meeting as well. So you can debate and they can be present, but they won't be adding to that debate.
Is that does that answer your question, Councillor Pennant?
Not entirely, because then why wouldn't we deliberate in public then too? So I'm just trying to understand what the difference is between debate and deliberations, because yeah, usually when you're on a resource consent hearing or whatever, you wouldn't do the deliberation in public.
Yeah, no, fair enough. We'll just get some advice on that. Surely you're comfortable to answer. It's a good question. Yeah.
Hello, Councillor Pennant. So this process has been taken from our DLC hearing process, in which the committee sort of adjourns to deliberate on that. And so the reason is to give, I guess, the committee a chance to deliberate outside of the direct part of the meeting, like just like in a court, maybe a jury would adjourn to deliberate and then come back. The process as well has been largely taken from another council where the process was judicially reviewed and upheld by the judge. And so it's been designed to just be as fair to both parties as possible and as neutral as possible.
Excellent. Thank you, Officer Johnson. Now with that, are there any other partai, any questions before we get underway? Just taking this time to make sure everybody's firmed up. Excellent. Okay, cool. With that, I would like to invite the representatives of Wellington City Council's Public Health Team and Animal Control Team, Helen Jones and Jude Austin, to make any statements and answer any questions from councillors. I see a username that is just joining now. Helen Jones, are you able to unmute, maybe turn your camera on for this bit?
Good morning, councillors. This is actually being led by Jude Austin. I'm observing today. So Jude should be there in the council building along with the animal control officer. I'm hoping she is there. It looks like she's just connecting now.
Just connecting. Morena, Jude, if you've just joined, we have just opened the invitation for Wellington City Council to present. When you're ready.
Lovely. Sorry, apologies. We had a few IT issues, so we're working off the laptop. Morena, my name's Jude Austin. I'm the team leader for public health, and I'm joined by Damien Nuns, who is the team leader for animal control services. Excuse me, that was Damien. And I've also got Vicky Harwood with me, who is a senior animal control officer. So this matter relates to an application by the dog owner, Miss Moon, to review a decision made to replace a dangerous dog's classification on the dog Lobo. On the 10th of November, the complainant was bitten by a dog, Lobo, whilst on lead but uncontrolled. The dog jumped up and bit Miss Mercedes. The dog was being walked by Mr. Cesar and Miss Nunes, the dog owner, who was walking ahead and didn't exactly see what happened. Mr. Cesar had the dog on lead. Neither parties disagree that Lobo attacked Mrs. Mercedes. The Dog Control Act 1996, Section 53, requires dog owners to keep dogs under control. The dog owner has breached sections 57, 57A and 58 of the Act. The complainant suffered 2 puncture wounds, scratches and bruising, which required medical attention. Ms. Mercedes' clothing was damaged during the incident. Ms. Mercedes states she's also suffered from anxiety since the incident. The offending dog has an attack history. In 2018, the offending dog jumped up and bit a member of the public. This is a similar offence. The dog owner was issued an infringement notice under section 53. The dog owner has stated by email that Lobo is a jumper and that he can do harm and advises caution. For the incident that occurred on the 10th of November, as a result of the Animal Services investigation, the dog owner was issued with an infringement notice under section 53. The dog was assessed against the attack rating matrix with a score of 34. As a result, classified as a dangerous dog under section 31 of the Dog Control Act and section 36A of the Dog Control Amendment Act. The attack rating matrix is a robust and consistent rating process that ensures Wellington City Council meets its obligations under section 31, territorial authority to classify dangerous dogs. Wellington City Council has an obligation to ensure public safety and that the public is protected from aggressive animals that can cause harm. Wellington City Council must be confident that no further harm will occur. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Jude. Councillors, are there any questions of the Animal Control team? I have a question to start us off. Thank you for that presentation. In 2018, when the infringement notice was issued, why wasn't the menacing dog classification issued then too? Why just an infringement notice?
I'm unable to answer that. The animal control officer that issued that particular infringement is not here.
All right, thank you.
I might just refer to the Animal Control Services team leader, Damien. He might have a better answer for that one.
Hi. The only thing I can't remember the incident off the top of my head and reading through it, the injury was minor in that result and that attack, and only required a tetanus shot. And going on that is probably because it was its first incident being brought to our attention, the injury being minor, and the information received from the dog owner what they were going to do, we took it on goodwill that they would do that and obviously issue an infringement for failure to control in that respect.
Okay, thank you. We have a party from Councillor Pennant.
Thank you. I've got a few, so can I just ask 3 and then someone else can have a turn?
Yeah.
Thank you for all your work and obviously appreciating this is a difficult situation for everyone involved. I just wondered about the definition of sworn evidence and whether what we had in front of us met the legal test under the Dog Control Act. Did it go in front of a JP, or was just going in front of a dog control officer under the Act was sufficient?
Sorry, Jude, could you unmute? We just had to mute you there for a second because of the audio.
Cool. It was a statement was sworn in front of a JP.
Right, thank you. Next question, how many menacing and dangerous dogs have we classified at the moment?
Sorry.
Sorry, I did not bring that statistic to the meeting. I'm more than happy to send it through to you after.
Yeah, so I guess the question is, and I know from my past history, but I just want to check now what the current situation is. You know, is this uncommon for us to classify a dog as dangerous after biting someone?
Well, every incident is put through the risk rating matrix. So that's in one of the appendices where they assess the dog and the incident itself. So it depends on the score. So if there is an incident, and we do actually have a few attacks on file at the moment, we take the incident and the dog through that matrix, and depending on what score comes out is what our next steps will be.
Okay, and just the next question for now. So I understand that we couldn't just decide to classify the dog as a menacing dog rather than a dangerous one through this particular process. So is it possible to change the classification later, or would there need to be another incident, in which case we might not classify it as menacing anyway?
Danger supersedes it. The reason we chose to do this.
I'll just turn you to Damien.
The reason we chose to do this one as dangerous is purely on the rating. We had a history already of an attack, and the rating pushed it up so close to prosecution. I think there was only two figures, 34 versus 36. 36 would be considered prosecution. So the reason we pushed it to the dangerous rather than a menacing is because it scored so high on the matrix purely because of a previous incident.
Okay, and thanks. That answers one of my other questions too, just about the difference between court and council processes. Thanks. I'll let someone else have a go now.
Councillor Pennant, excuse me, I do have numbers for dangerous and menacing dogs. So in the last business year, we classified 8 dogs as dangerous and 27 dogs as menacing.
Thank you. And I presume they were all individual cases, so we can't compare different kinds of biting.
No, they would have all been individual circumstances, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Councillors, are there any other partai for the animal control team? Councillor Pennant, did you have any more questions?
I do. So I did read the relevant section of the Act. So as I understand it, if we impose this classification, the dog will have to be muzzled at all times and on lead and under control. So is that just, I just wanted to check my understanding. And also, would it then be able to go off lead but muzzled in a dog exercise area?
Yep.
Off lead, but still muzzled. Off lead,
But still muzzled. Yeah, okay,
yeah.
So I understood that correctly. Lovely, thank you. That's helpful. And presumably, if there was another attack, then that might put it into the prosecution place.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you believe that with proper training, that Lobo's behaviour can improve?
It just depends on the dog. It depends on the dog, I think. Yeah. There's a lot of, if you look at some of the emails presented by the dog owners, that they do discuss the dog's behaviour. So they have that awareness. But even like with this dog being on what they call a short lead, the dog was still able to pull away. So it might be that they can. I couldn't comment for sure. Damien has advised me that the behaviour of the dog seems to be unpredictable.
Okay, and maybe I'll ask the participants the other question. And then just the last question, yeah, I just wanted to ask about the collar. So do those collars not stop the dog from biting?
Yeah, it's a whole thing.
Then they're not foolproof.
No.
It doesn't close the mouth.
It doesn't close the mouth.
So it could still, as long as it can get enough off control, it can still. So it needs to be muzzled. That's the only way.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for that.
Cool. I just had one other partai. It was around, I guess I'm trying to understand the 2018 incident, even though that is not specifically, what we are hearing today. But if we had taken greater preventative measures maybe back then, do we know if we have on hand what the risk rating of the dog was after the 2018 incident? How high risk did we have?
No, that wasn't undertaken back then. I am recent to Wellington City Council. I joined 1st of July last year. So since I've joined, we've actually implemented a consistent process. So every attack is now treated the same. So back then, I don't believe there was that kind of process in place. And it was more sort of a discretionary thing back then, whereas now it's like, this is the process that we go through for every incident.
Oh, cool. Thank you for clarifying that, Jude. Councillors, if we don't have any further partai, I would now like to invite the dog owner, Fernanda Nunez, to make any statements or answer any questions for the councillor.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. I'm sure you are familiar with all the evidence that has been provided, but I would just like a few details that I believe it's important to understand the whole picture of this case. And that's my only opportunity to do that. So the council report mentions all the complaints that have been received about Lobo. We are never told to get back to the council to tell what we've done in regards to the complaints, but we did do everything we could to avoid further problems. We engaged training, we installed fences, and we changed the leash setup to a shorter leash using the halt collar to have better control. And this is reflected in the period of time that the complaints have been received, which were about 4 years ago, and nothing else happened since then. In relation to being a responsible owner, I'm just reiterating that Lobo has been kept within the dangerous dog classification requirements, even though he wasn't required to do that. With the exception of the muzzle, we have a fully fenced section that was always here even before we had him. We never walked him off leash, and we used this short leash and head collar for better control. So now, one more time, we've taken immediate action to address the problem by engaging the dog behaviorist and practicing some training with him at home that has been showing a lot of improvement in a short period of time. So the other thing I would like to raise is just a few days ago, when I had access to the statement provided by the other party, I couldn't help noticing that I've been accused of being a liar and having an attitude. And I don't think this is a nice thing to say to someone who only provided support. I asked her if she wanted to go to a doctor, recommended her to go to a doctor, gave her my phone number, and we had a very civil conversation, which was very surprising to me that they were both very calm. The lady didn't scream or holding her arm in pain, which you would expect from a bite from a German Shepherd. So yeah, it's really disappointing to see nasty comments said about me. And the incident was very distressing for all parties, I believe, for her and for us also. We have been distressed since November last year. So briefly going back to the facts, the main complaint at the time seemed to be her ripped sleeve. And when I saw the wound, it wasn't bleeding. There were no distinguishable puncture marks. And obviously the bruise wasn't there yet. It must have set in the following day. So adding this to these facts, again, the tethering we're using for the dog made me think it was a scratch, because when I say he is a jumper, he's a jumper of joy. He already scratched me playing with me. And that's what I said to her, because he didn't bark at the time. He gave no signs of aggressivity. So there was no way for us to predict he was going to jump on her, to be able to control before things happen. So yeah, I think everybody has personal dramas in their lives, and this lady made it very clear in her statement. But I don't see the reason to do that, to get compassion from you when this is not related to the case. Yeah, that's all I have to say, and I'm happy to answer your questions. Thank you. Marcelo, do you want to say anything?
I just want to say something, because I was the one holding the dog, and on the description of the accident, they said that the dog was in one side, and then he turned all the side to go to her arm. That's not accurate. The dog was just behind me, because there was a really sunny day, and he do that when the sun is against his eyes. He look for a shelter, for shadow, or when it's too windy. So the dog was behind me, and the lady, she passed, and the thing is, I heard the comment before she was in the same line with me, that she said, "Oh, look how beautiful the dog." But then when she was passing, she took like the hand like that and put the arm like that. And I didn't see that's because I thought, okay, that's something nice for the dog. So I keep walking. And then I feel that because of the leash, the kind of leash they use, he pulled. So, and the leash, in this kind of leash, it's made for him not to pull. So each time that he go straight, the leash push and his head go this way. There is no way. That's it's something that I always argue about, the puncture. The other thing, my dog, he has the 4 canines are just like a sandpaper pass. We send the picture or not?
Yeah, I guess so.
He cannot, if he do the puncture, it'll be blood everywhere, and she's gonna take stitch, because he doesn't have sharp teeth. You know, he used, since he was, we learned that later, since he was a puppy, tennis ball, and the texture of the texture that involved the tennis ball work like a sand on the teeth. So if you look at the picture, you're going to see that his canine is not sharp; they are
just
flat.
blunt.
Yeah. So to do the puncture, you'll be really. I think he nipped. You know, and the puncture just didn't happen because of the kind of the teeth he has. But I think that we must put in perspective what she's saying about the accident, and it's really frustrating. See what she said about my wife, because it was completely the opposite. Included, I should mention, then my wife came back to me. I was a little bit like, why you push the lady so much to give your information? She was quite okay with the accident. And then my wife said, oh, because the right things to do. And I said, okay, but she didn't want. So what was that? And when I see what she wrote was practically the opposite, you know. She said that her daughter need to come and grab the phone, the number phone of my wife, and that was not what's happened. Was the opposite. We insist to give our information to her. My wife insists to give the information to her. So it's all that I have to say.
Excellent. Thank you, Fernanda Nunes and Mr. Caesar. I appreciate this has been really stressful for you. Councillors, do we have any questions? I see we've got a partai from Deputy Mayor Sarah Free.
Thank you, and I do understand this is really, really hard, but I am a bit puzzled as to why you would have offered or recommended she went to the doctor if you thought it was a very minor injury.
because the first incident in 2018, what happened, I was going down the path to Evans Bay, and I'll briefly tell you, and my dog started barking at this person, and but she walked past, and the dog was still barking, and I went away and said sorry and went away. And then she said later on that she was bleeding and I didn't do anything, but I didn't see anything happen. I didn't see him biting her. So I walked on, and later on the brother of this person came to talk to me at the park and told me what happened. I was shocked because I had no idea. So based on this, I said the right thing to do is offer my phone number and tell her to see a doctor, because she would feel more reassured to seeing a doctor and seeing that's nothing major. She was an older lady, and I believe she needed the reassurance of a doctor. That's why I suggested her to do it, and took responsibility by giving my phone number for her to contact me after seeing a doctor. That's why.
Thank you. And the other question I had was a comment made by you, sir, that you didn't see the dog's behaviour. The behaviour of the dog was a bit unpredictable, so you didn't know to control him because you didn't know what he was going to do. Who was it who described the dog's behaviour as unpredictable? Our staff member mentioned that.
I
Would you describe the dog's behaviour as you don't necessarily know what Lobo is going to do? Because it sounded as if you didn't know that Lobo was going to necessarily react that way. So how well do you know his behaviour?
Yeah, well, I didn't say he wasn't predictable, but what I said, it was hard to predict that he was going to jump, because if he's in aggressive mode, the usual thing is for him to bark, and he didn't bark. Everything happened in total silence. He didn't bark, the lady didn't scream, so it was hard to understand what was happening. I was walking a few steps in front of them, and I turned because my husband wasn't coming behind me, and I looked back to see what was happening. That's when I saw the lady complaining about her sleeve that was ripped. And I approached her and asked, "Are you okay? What happened?" And she said, "Your dog ripped my sleeve." And then we saw the arm and saw the scratch that I thought it was a scratch because of the reasons I just explained to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pennant.
Thank you for coming in, and like Deputy Mayor Free, I understand it is difficult, and I have 2 dogs, so yeah, I understand the responsibilities. I guess I just wanted to clarify with you, now that you've seen the evidence, whether you accept there was a bite. I'd appreciate you had a different perspective at the time.
I'm not 100% sure it was a bite, because as I said, it was really hard for it to have happened given the Hātepe collar. When he jumps, automatically his head will turn to one side or the other. He would never be able to go straight with in full mode to bite her. Maybe his intent was to bite her, I don't know, but I don't think that's what happened.
And there seems to be a discrepancy between the evidence which says that the other party didn't say anything to the dog or click fingers, and your view was that did happen. Is there any way that we can reconcile that?
Well, she said she didn't approach the dog and she didn't approach to touch him, but she did incline herself with the arm towards him. I didn't see this, but my husband saw. And I believe it's really embarrassing for a person to admit they behaved. I'm not excusing my dog in any ways, please believe me. But it's really embarrassing to admit that you've done something that we tell children not to do. Like, do not approach a dog you don't know. Do never do that, especially a German Shepherd. So I find it hard that a person would admit that she did that.
Okay, and just the last question. I presume you would be making a commitment to doing more training with Lobo, and that these barking complaints and these 2 incidences have been isolated. So from puppyhood, he was a well-adjusted dog.
Mm.
Would that be your view?
Yeah. He has always been friendly to everyone. I provided some declarations from people who know him for a long time, and even the dog handler that took him for a few days, he never met him before, and he was immediately friendly to the guy. So I find hard to describe him as a dangerous dog. That's my point of making this objection, because he's not like that. And of course, I'm not denying this happened. It did. We are addressing this with training. He's going every week into training. And we have been talking to the dog behaviorist, and she gave us a program of things to do at home. Well, we got to the conclusion that he feels the need to protect us, and that's why he jumped on the lady. And the previous time as well. The previous time was even, the conditions were even worse because the path is very narrow. And we were very close, even though I had him sitting by me waiting for her to pass. She stopped and talked to him, instead of passing straight from us. And probably he felt that as a threat.
Okay, and sorry, there is just a last question. I mean, so you will be doing everything you can to avoid this happening, irrespective of the classification.
Oh, yes.
You would want him to be a well-behaved dog, because it's not good for him or you or anyone. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. And we are doing right now already, because we don't want that to happen anymore. It's really distressful for everyone. And I don't want to lose him. He's my dog. If you have dogs, you understand that.
Yeah, I do. Right. Thank you very much for answering my questions.
Thank you. I have two questions. The first question is around just what improvements you've taken with Lobo, and what steps. I know you've. I'm particularly interested in the training around not jumping up on people, not rushing, or anything like that.
Well, the jumping has improved a lot. We had a lot of people during summertime here visiting us, staying with us. He was much better behaved, because usually he jumps on people to say hello. He wasn't doing that anymore. Joe, the dog behaviorist, told us to work on making him stand behind us when we answer the door, because he goes in fully mode of protective dog and who is there, that sort of thing. He has improved that. When he barks to outside noises, we tell him to leave it, and he responds well. And we are not doing everything he wants as we usually did. He's sort of a spoiled dog in that sense. So we are taking a more authoritative approach. We are not authoritative people, and probably that's the reason why this whole situation was created. But we are now more authoritative with him. We put him in timeout when he doesn't do what we are telling him to do. So we have seen very good improvement as a result of that.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, like Councillor Pennant, I'm a dog owner and a dog lover myself, and I think a few other people know what it's like to have to train dogs always through their lifetime. My second question is around why you are objecting to a dangerous dog classification today, if most of the steps that you do already comply. Is it something particular about wearing a full muzzle in public, or why you're objecting today? Because I feel like we agree on most of the evidence presented.
I think the main reason I think is because I find the penalty, not the muzzle using, but the label of a dangerous dog is not proportional to what the dog is really. And I don't think it's fair, just that. I know if he was classified as a menacing dog, he would have to use a muzzle anyway. But that's not the point. Here I think I will keep using a muzzle for our own peace of mind, but yeah, it's the whole unfairness of this, because I understand the matrix assessment was used to assess the classification, but I saw the matrix in the papers, and it's a very objective way of classifying something that has a whole lot of subjective factors that need to be considered. So that's the reason.
Yeah. Mr. Caesar, did you want to?
No, just to tell that the fact of the muzzle in the beginning was really awful because it hurt his nose, but after that, when he get better, we did improvement on the muzzle. We realized that for us, it's much better that he used the muzzle because he's a very exuberant dog, beautiful. It's not because of my dog, but it's really a pain walk him because people get this urge, whatever, and go straight to touch him without asking us. Sometimes it's too late, but he behaved most of the time well. And what's happened with that lady was just like that. She was really nice with the comment that she did and everything. That's the reason when he jumped, I couldn't believe that he jumped to attack, because he didn't bark before, during, and after. And each time that, for example, with the first one was different. He was barking to the lady before, barking when she didn't pass, she came to the dog, and bark later when she left. So we could notice that, my wife could notice that the dog was aggressive at this point. But that time wasn't. He was sitting and looking at me all the time that she was talking with. So it's too much to, if he was a dangerous dog, the attack will not be enough. He's gonna keep barking, and the whole behavior of the dog, you'll be indicating that, but it wasn't what's happened.
Cool. I just had a supplementary question to that. Do you think if Lobo wore a nozzle out in public, that people might be less likely to come up and rush to him and freak him out?
Yeah, I think it helps, even though several times since the time he's been using the muzzle, people still stop and want to talk and want to touch him. I would never do that to a muzzle dog, but unbelievably as it is, people still do that.
Yeah, yes. I live in Hātepe myself. I know people really do love their dogs.
Yeah.
They get very excited, especially at a point at the dog park. Fantastic. Councillors, are there any other partai for the party here? I'll just remind you that we cannot ask questions after the closing statement, so this is our last chance. Oh, cool. Thank you so much, Fernanda and Mr. Caesar. We will next go to the animal control team, and then you will have an opportunity to reply to any statements. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you, everyone. All right. I would now like to invite Wellington City Council's Public Health Team and Animal Control Team to respond to any of the points and yeah, we will not be able to ask any questions of you this time, but just to respond to those points. Thanks, Jude. Oh, apologies, just to unmute there.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity to present again. Initially, I just want to refer to Appendix 4, which is Mr. Caesar's statement, where he has advised us that Lobo was on his left side while the ladies were passing on the right side. Lobo came around from my left side and behind me, and I felt him pulling the leash in her direction. So I would just like to say where we got that information from. That was from Mr. Caesar's statement. Secondly, in 2018, when that incident did first occur, the first incident, Animal Services advised me that the owners then had said they would engage in an animal behaviourist. And then I think my final statements are, he was on lead and uncontrolled. He was still able to jump up and bite. The medical records presented by Ms. Mosades clearly indicate a bite to the arm, and the animal control officers, in their experience, agree that it is a bite. Therefore, Wellington City Council is under no doubt that was a bite that occurred at the time of the incident, and Animal Services are confident that a muzzle will keep people at bay. We have a responsibility to ensure public safety, and a dangerous classification gives us the confidence that he will be muzzled. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Jude. Were there any other statements from anybody from the animal control team sharing the room with you, or you're happy?
No.
No, all good. Just checking. Thank you. And Ms. Nunez and Mr. Caesar, if you have any responses to that. Oh, apologies, just to unmute.
Just thinking about what has been said. When the first event occurred in 2018, and I was contacted by the dog control officer, I understood in that I recently realized it wasn't correct. I understood he was classified as a menacing dog. So since that time, since 2018 until now, we thought he was classified as a menacing dog. I wasn't aware of the process that we had to be issued a notice or anything. So we were very careful because of that classification. That's what I wanted to let you know. And I recently found out that being menacing also needs to use a muzzle. So if you agree to downgrade his classification to a menacing dog, he will be using a muzzle anyway. So I believe this would address the health and safety concern. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you both for all your statements. I'd just like to extend on behalf of the committee that we recognise this is a really stressful process for both parties present here today. What we're going to do now is councillors will adjourn, and we will place both parties. So just so we are all clear, the Wellington City Council officers from dog control and public health will also be excluded from this part, and we will put you in a waiting room, and then once councillors have had time to just kind of roll through all the evidence, we will come back and return from the adjournment. And I invite you, if you would like to be present, otherwise we can give you a phone call once we're done, so you don't have to wait around, maybe grab a cup of tea or something like that. Yes, please, just to note that all the deliberations will be minuted and they will form the basis of a formal discussion to be issued, and they should be available to look at the end of this as well. Excellent. Do we need to move that we go into adjournment? No. Okay, cool. And with that, we'll just take a few minutes to set up the waiting room to put both parties into, and then councillors will be able to get underway. Thank you, everyone. After a short adjournment, we are just going to move the paper with the recommendations. So I'll start off, and I'd just like to first say that we appreciate and recognise how stressful this has been for both parties, and I would like to thank you as the chair of this meeting for being incredibly respectful on both sides and making this a fair process. Our committee has decided to agree to uphold the classification of a dangerous dog today, and I will be moving that as the recommendation in the paper. I'd just like to recognise, I guess, the person that has been bitten in this instant, and I want to recognise both Fernanda and Marcelo, and just recognise that your family has done a great deal of taking responsibility and taking Lobo to be trained and fenced and all these other things, and that this, the classification of a dangerous dog is the legislative label that we have to use, and although we feel sometimes even if your best friend might not be dangerous, that's the label that we have to use in this instance, and that the scoring within the document is quite high and quite close to, alternatively something like a prosecution case, but we were just a few points shy of that. So unfortunately, we have decided to go with a dangerous dog label here today. And just lastly, to reiterate that within upholding this, to acknowledge that both the owners have accepted responsibility, and in terms of extending your phone number to the person that was hurt in this instance, and just checking up and making sure that they were okay. And with that, I'd like to move the motion. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Matthews. With the motion have been put and seconded, I now open the floor for any debate. Councillors, would you like to add any debate to this? No? Okay, cool. Oh, Councillor Pennant.
Thank you, and thank you for your chairing, Councillor O'Neill. Look, I find this agonising as a dog guardian. Like they do become part of our families, and even though they're not supposed to be treated like children, they often are seen that way. But I guess when I look at section 31(1)(b), the test has been met, sadly, that this dog, and it's because it's labelled a dangerous dog doesn't mean it's also a wonderful dog as well. A lot of the time, probably it will be absolutely fine, but I guess we would just a bit concerned about its unpredictability and the fact that it had been more than one incident. So I hope that that you will understand that this has been difficult for us, and that I wish you the best of luck with training Lobo so he can continue to be a much loved member of your family.
Thank you, Councillor Pennant. Just in my closing right of reply, to acknowledge and extend a lot of councillors here on this committee are avid lovers of dogs, and just recognising the steps that have to be taken, as I'm sure our animal control team and our public health team are as well. Right, so Inaine ka potitiaia te motini. I now put the motion which has been moved and seconded. If councillors could just vote accordingly, please. Thank you, that has been carried. Excellent. And now just at the conclusion of the meeting, I tēnā kua mutu te hui. I now declare the meeting is closed, and I will just say the closing karakia. Anuhia, 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 ki te uru tapanui, kia wātia, kia māma, te nākau, te tinana, te wairua, e te ara takatu. Koe rā e rongo, whakaria ake ki runga, kia wātia, ai rā, ko wātia. Thank you, councillors. And just for all present, you should be able to see the very well minuted adjournment coming out in the Regulatory Processes Committee minutes sometime. We're going to estimate probably within 2 weeks. I think that's, yeah. Cool. So you'll be able to see the full listing.